Every shonen action series has a tournament arc. There's good reason for this. Just on a conceptual level, it allows writers to have tons of fights, introducing a ton of characters and establishing their personalities, abilities, and motivations without worrying about screwing with the story's pacing. So when RWBY had their tournament arc at the beginning of Volume 3, it was a golden opportunity. The show had issues giving characters things to do, giving reasons for fight scenes, and establishing character motivations. And the writers kind of screwed it up. How? Well, as I give you reasons, I'm going to compare it to some better tournament arcs. Namely, the Chunin exams from Naruto, and the handful of tournament arcs sprinkled throughout the Dragon Ball series. I know I could also use My Hero Academia, Yu Yu Hakusho, or Hunter x Hunter, but I'm more familiar with Naruto and Dragon Ball, and I think Naruto is just a better point of comparison, especially since both the Chunin exams and the Vytal Festival tournament do lead to a bigger invasion plot. Problem 1. Why are we doing this? Tournament in itself is a contest of skill, usually done for entertainment purposes. The Budokai tournaments in Dragon Ball primarily exist to showcase the world's strongest warriors. The Chunin exams are probably the best tournament arc in this regard. That tournament exists as a formality to promote low-level Genin into mid-level Chunin. It also exists to allow rival nations to vent their issues, thus preventing great shinobi wars, and allows them to gather info on potential threats. This all follows nicely with the war economy at the heart of Naruto's world. The Vytal Festival tournament exists because there was a great war and it ended, and to celebrate, the kingdoms get together to watch the next batch of heroes beat the snot out of each other.
The Vytal Festival tournament was designed to test the strengths of the kingdom's warriors.
And the huntsman representing kingdoms here runs counterintuitive to the fact that huntsmen don't have allegiance to the kingdoms, except in the case of the Atlasian specialists. But that's not as counterintuitive as holding a tournament for this reason.
In a safe and friendly competitive environment.
In Naruto, it was a compromise. People still died in the exams, but it was hand-waved as an occupational hazard. This is how all the bickering nations in Naruto keep from waging all-out war. The Vytal Festival, not so much. As I said, the huntsmen aren't actually directly tied to the kingdoms, and so to put it into perspective, this would be like we celebrated Armistice Day by getting together with all the nations involved in World War I, and just having a tournament for shits and giggles. Oh, but also add that any negative emotions, like the ones that manifest during conflicts, may also bring in monsters capable of wiping out cities. Like exactly what happens. And that's the hamartia of this entire series. The Grimm simply have no effect on how Remnant is ran. Now that we've seen why the Vytal Festival would never happen in its current state, let's look at an even bigger issue. Problem 2. Why is anyone doing this? There are two things tournament arcs are really proficient at: delivering action scenes and showing off characters. Look at any tournament arc and any tournament fight and you'll see this. RWBY does neither. Let's take a look at Goku. His entire characterization is built around him wanting to fight strong opponents. This characterization is the linchpin in the entire series of nearly every chapter of Goku's life. You can even argue that Goku could only have a story if there's a constant string of tournament arcs to push him. A tournament arc needs to have a driving force like this in order to work. If the characters don't care, we can't care. Let's look at Naruto again. He wants to be the Hokage. The Chunin exams is a massive step he has to take in order to achieve that dream. It's also his first real opportunity to prove himself to the village that treated him like an outcast. And it's not just him. Look at some of these characters. Sasuke wants to push himself to the next level and get one step closer to catching up to Itachi. Sakura wants to prove that she does have a place in all this. Lee wants to prove that he can be an exceptional ninja without having ninja magic. Hinata wants to improve herself, make her family proud, and gain the respect of her crush. Neji wants to break free of the Hyuga stranglehold. Tenten wants to be the best. Shino, Kiba, Ino, and Choji all come from respected clans. Shikamaru doesn't care about the tournament and only participates because Ino dragged him into it, and quitting is more troublesome than it's worth. And then you got Gaara, who wants to satisfy his bloodlust and his team wants to keep him satisfied. That's 15 character motivations directly tied to this tournament, most of which can only be satisfied with this tournament. RWBY, not even one. I think the main problem is the prize. There's no prize for winning. There's no promotion, no reward, no money, no lifetime supply of heat-tap. None of the characters besides Penny have a reason to participate in the tournament except that there's a tournament, so might as well. And Penny's motive amounted to nothing because of her character death. Which brings me to problem 3. What do the characters gain? I said in a previous video that a good fight scene will have some sort of risk and reward to its fight. Right now, Dragon Ball Super has the biggest stakes ever. If Goku and his allies lose, their entire universe will be erased. Same goes for every other team, but once again, I have to focus on Naruto. More specifically, Lee versus Gaara, the ultimate battle of hard work versus talent. Lee has pushed himself beyond the limitations of the human body, but Gaara barely has to move to kill any average opponent. Lee overwhelms Gaara with his sheer physicality and forces Gaara to actually strategize for once. Lee still loses as his body gives out and Gaara cripples him. Similarly, Hinata fights Neji and tries proving herself to him and the audience. Neji sees all her efforts as futile and beats her to a bloody pulp. Naruto takes these two losses as if they were his own and carries them with him to the next round where he fights Neji and later fights Gaara. But the Neji scene in particular ends with a poignant moment where Naruto reveals that he flunked the academy graduation test numerous times because of the clone jutsu and now shadow clones are his specialty. I don't really have anything to add to this as far as RWBY goes. The characters are never given a reason to care about any of this. The only ones that come close are Penny, who wants to use the tournament to convince her father to let her stay at Beacon, and Pyrrha, who's very competitive and can't bring herself to fail, especially after learning about the maidens. Problem 4. The fight scenes. A good series can have any of this through any context, but something a tournament arc really has to deliver on is the fight scenes. RWBY is known for its fight scenes, so surely if nothing else it'd deliver on this. RWBY vs. Auburn is a completely incoherent mess. Not a single person working on this scene communicated with anyone else working on this scene. It leads to a few good bits, but you can seriously play these scenes in almost any order and it'd make just as much sense. Who is RWBY swinging at? Why is Reese just standing there? Why is Yang just standing there? Will someone please fix Arslan's foot? Juniper vs. Bronze is even worse, but for different reasons. They stopped the fight for over 20 seconds to explain Nora's powers, which isn't as bad as Blake standing around for 30 seconds in Volume 5, but another big issue is that it never feels like Juniper is being challenged. Yura could take on all 4 of these guys herself. Oh, Nora slams them all out of bounds in a single hit. Sun vs. Indigo is a little bit better. There's a lot more background details that are much appreciated and some neat shots that tie together well. But Sun doesn't understand the simplest of strategic advantages. Come on! Neptune outflanked them and has the high ground. This should be easy! This fight mostly existed to introduce Scarlet and Sage, 2 characters who haven't amounted to anything, and the fight is built around a single stupid joke, Neptune being afraid of water, which, not gonna lie, did make me chuckle a bit. The next tournament fight we see is Mercury and Emerald kicking the crap out of Koko and Yatsuhashi, which for me is a bit cathartic, but it suffers from a lot of the same choppy editing and nonsensical transitions that the RWBY vs. Auburn fight had. Then Penny mercilessly gives Russell a concussion and everyone cheers. Gee, good thing there isn't someone plotting to destroy Vale and building her entire plan around someone hurting a fighter after the match is called. Razorburn vs. Funky is a lot of fun for a pointless fight. It's built around music and is a good example of a story being stronger than logic. I mean, if the fight was a smart fight, Weiss would have just started it by freezing the ground and making Neon's impractical design useless. Yang vs. Mercury, like many of these fights, lacks any real tension because Yang has no reason to care. This is the first time they've actually interacted. Mercury knows what's going on, but Yang doesn't, so her getting screwed over doesn't land the same way it does with the final fight. Penny vs. Pyrrha works. It's the highlight of the tournament. Build-up could have been way better. Exploring the rivalry between Beacon and Atlas would have added more depth to the proceedings. Or at least do what Naruto did with Gaara and Sasuke and have it hyped up throughout the rest of the tournament as the show-stopping fight. But Pyrrha and Penny being the only characters who even give a shit about the tournament goes so far into making the fight work, even without the ticking time bomb of Cinder's plan about to hatch. Problem 5. Do any of these characters matter? Short answer, no. Tournament arcs are generally used to introduce a slew of new characters. Naruto introduced Gaara's team, Lee and his team, Kabuto, Orochimaru, and gave characterizations to characters that had only made cameos up to that point. In RWBY, we get introduced to teams Auburn, Bronze, Indigo, the only half of Team Funky, CL, Winter, and Crow. That's 17 characters. 2 of them have nothing to do with the tournament plotline. One of them gets one scene and is never seen again. The rest get one fight each. Auburn and Funky also help out in the Battle of Beacon, but that's something more people should have done. But I digress. This isn't a video about the fall of Beacon. This is strictly about the tournament arc. All these teams feel like fodder. They only exist to give the character someone to fight because it's a tournament arc, and a bare-bones shallow tournament arc at that. The most egregious is Team Bronze, because they were just pointless. At least with Sun vs Indigo, it was the first time we saw Team Sun in action. You know, the team that got top billing in the opening over Team Juniper. I also conceptually hate Indigo. They only exist because Rooster Teeth had to come up with a way to pinch more pennies out of the Indiegogo guys. It's like merchandising, but instead of action figures, we got a subpar action comedy. The biggest problem with the Vytal Festival is how disconnected everything is. Nothing in Volume 3 connects. It's all random non sequiturs, and the few times they do pretend to have a plot, they introduce elements in the worst way possible. The characters, plot, and action exist in completely different planes of reality. That's why the Vytal Festival is the worst tournament arc I have ever seen. I'm Mediocrity4. Thanks for watching.